Hey everyone, listen, I'm gonna, just for the fun of it here, I'm gonna play with VirtualBox and install a virtual Windows 7 in here. So you usually been doing it with VMware, but let's give it a try with VirtualBox. Okay, so the first thing I think I need to do here is probably click on New. So let's give that a shot. And if we're gonna put in Windows 7, let's give it the name Windows 7, that seems as good as any, and this is where it's going to store the virtual machine. So remember, the virtual machine is typically just essentially one file. The whole operating system becomes a file. So down here, conveniently, it says Microsoft Windows, and it looks like it anticipated we were going to do Windows 7 64-bit edition. So let's click Next right here. Oh, and the total RAM on this machine is 16 gig, 2 gig is, that's enough for what that'll do is. Okay, create virtual machine on disk is the second one here. First one, do not, well, you're going to need a virtual hard drive. Use an existing virtual, well, I don't have an existing virtual hard drive at the moment. If I had created one in advance, then we could have used that. Recommended hard drive space 32 gig. Let's continue on. And here we can do it in several different formats: the native VirtualBox format, a VHD, or a VMDK. So VHD is the Microsoft Hyper-V format, and a VMDK is the VMware. Let's give this a try. Let's see if VirtualBox truly reads a VMDK, a VMware format. Okay. And we'll leave it as dynamically allocated here. A dynamically allocated hard disk file will only use space on your physical drive as it fills up to the maximum fixed size. So even though we set up 32 gig, if we use this one, it'll actually, that virtual hard drive size will be smaller and grow up to 32 gig. So that's fine. If we choose fixed, it would, the size on your physical hard drive taken up by the virtual hard drive would be the total, the complete 32 gig. So I'm fine with leaving it dynamic. Sometimes I like to use the fixed one, but for this purpose we'll use dynamic. Okay, and this is actually where, strangely enough, and this is where it's asking for the size, so we'll leave it at that 32 gig and create, somebody's telling me something. We'll get rid of that. Alrighty, so now that we've got that, we want to power it on. I'm not sure if it created the virtual hard drive. That would be pretty quick if it did. So let's click on the start. So we're starting up our Windows 7. Startup disk right here. This would be the, the DVD we typically sit in. And I could put a DVD in the machine, but in this case, I'm not doing that. I actually have an ISO file available on the hard drive. So let's browse for that. And let's click on optical disk selector. Hopefully it's not going to make me find an optical drive. That wouldn't be good, would it? Alrighty, so let's create an add here. And I have a folder with ISOs in here somewhere. It downloads, I think, ISO right here. And let's choose this 64-bit edition one. And cross our fingers. Let's hope this one actually works. So I'm going to give that a choose and give it a start. Okay, let's see if it actually finds. Okay, and it did. A little confusing that saying to put in a DVD, but the ISO is actually DVD in ISO format. Oh, we've got a few messages up the top. Let's continue on here and install now. And we should be familiar with this, but this is the this might be actually the first time I've done Windows 7 in VirtualBox. So I'm going to accept the terms there and continue on. Now, maybe you've heard me say this before, but we want to custom install. We don't want to do an upgrade unless we were upgrading from an operating system like Windows Vista or something like that. But generally, if you can do a fresh install, doing a fresh install, you choose the custom. Now, what's going to happen here is it's going to use the space and it's going to create a little boot partition. Now, we could go here and change the size of it. I probably don't, since I only give 32 gig, but I could go in and this is where I could go in and create different different partition sizes. So if I had asked you not to use the entire space here, we would click New and set it as a smaller size and then leave space free to be used later on. Let's continue on here. And oh, that was quick, the first one, but these other ones are probably going to take a little while, so it's probably best that I pause the video and catch you in a little bit when it's got further along. So the looks like the installation is almost complete. Let me pause it again for a moment. All right, and we're back here. Let's get rid of this now. And let's do what we normally have to do here is insert the guest editions CD image. Okay, now how do we find that? We go into the File Explorer and we go to Computer, and you can see now we have the VirtualBox guest editions. So let's install that. And we're going to take the one that says AMD 64. Actually, that can be either for Intel or AMD. Despite the name, it's a little misleading. Alright, and let's go through that. We'll always trust Oracle, why not? Especially since it's in a virtual. And our guest edition should take another moment to complete. So it's putting in all the driver support and everything. As you can see by reading through if you can read quickly through the messages right here. It's updating some of the DLLs and so forth. We won't reboot right now, we'll do that later on. And we'll close out the let's open the C drive again, and let's close that out. Okay, so let's just check our device manager, verify that it is everything's looking good. And device manager, let's go into administrative tools, let's go into computer management. And let's go down here to device manager. And you can see there are no question marks here or anything, so everything looks fine. Let's just expand some of them. Intel adapter, monitor, it's just generic. DVD, you can see this is it's not a real CD-ROM drive, it's VirtualBox, it's a virtual one. Adapters, a VirtualBox graphics adapter, so you can see when we put in the VirtualBox guest integration tools that added support for all of these things right here, so they're effectively virtual drivers. So that looks good. Let's take a look. The event viewer. Let's see if there are any errors on it. Just curious if we got anything here. Okay, let's go under Windows Logs, Application. There's a bunch of warnings here. It's kind of good to note this. You know, there's probably nothing unusual about this, but it's interesting to know when you're installing it in hardware or virtual what kind of messages to anticipate. We don't really worry about this auditing right now, but the setup one might be interesting. And yeah, very interesting. There's nothing there. Okay, system one. Okay, this is good. This is just a bunch of information. There's no red or yellow on that one. So just be aware on here that there are a bunch of warnings and okay, so I'm not too worried about that, but that's something could look into. Okay, so that is the event viewer right there. Let's take a look at the performance monitor. This is actually something very useful for collecting data. We can click on performance monitor here and add counters. So we can monitor how the CPU or your network and so forth is being used. Let's take a look at processor information. Yeah, you can see some of them get pretty technical. They're very, but so there are lots and lots of things here you can, but it doesn't mean you have to know every one of them. You know, you only pick and choose what's going to be useful to you. So this can be awful overwhelming. Let's click on memory. See if we get something that we could actually use. Let's say page faults per second. That might tell you some kind of errors, problems you have, especially with the RAM or maybe the software that you're using. Yeah, so lots of things that you can take a look at in here, but you could spend weeks in here going through all the different things you can monitor. All right, so let's cancel out of that. And you can see right here, I've got in here, I'm monitoring percent processor time. And for some reason it's spiking at the moment. I'm not quite sure why. Yeah. Anyway, that's something that looks strange. I don't know if it's something to do with the VMware tools or something, but that's looking a bit unusual. Let's see. Let's take a look at the system configuration. And this is a handy little thing. You'll find it's in a different spot. Now it's kind of integrated into other things within Windows 10. But on here you can see the normal startup is the default selection. But you've got a diagnostic startup right here, which is helpful to load just the basic services as it says right here. So if you're having problems booting up, if things are crashing, that can be helpful. Boot right here, you can see in here you've got a safe boot, no GUI boot, boot log, so forth. I like this one here, but this is probably my favorite to use, is the startup tab. Now all we've got here is in here right now is the VirtualBox guest integrations, But if you have a computer that has a lot of applications running in it and it's unstable, it's nice to be able to go in here and you can just simply uncheck them. So things that are loaded, applications that are loading things during the boot could be causing you problems. It could be causing the computer problems. So what you can do is come in here to the Startup tab and just uncheck them. And then if the problem goes away, you can start gradually adding things back again until the problem occurs. And it's very helpful in troubleshooting to figure out if some kind of program is creating a stability issue with your computer. Well, I think that's it for now. But next, I'll go into the exercise in Canvas and kind of walk through those a little bit. So we'll stop this here for now.